Alright, well, all this talk about Microsoft, I guess, removing 50 games and DLCs from the marketplace for the 360 games has been trending. That was earlier this month, so I'm late for that part. But a lot of people are like, why are they doing that? Xbox 360 isn't retro. That depends on who you ask. Because I would consider the 360 retro at this point because it came out 2005. So you got to think to like average gamer age right now and that sort of thing. Like this game right here is from I think 2008 or something, and you can tell it looks dated. There are some parts of the 360 era that are great, but then there's a lot of parts that are like romanticized. Is that the word? Where it was like people make it better than what it actually was. Like back then, this game was fun for me, but now it's like some of the controls are just, and even some of the parts of the game are just straight up broken and stuff like that. Like I was playing a different 360 game earlier this week, just replaying it again, and I was getting shot at through a wall, and the dude was inside a barn, and there was no windows, and there was nothing I could do to shoot him back. And I'm just like, this is broken. Not this game. This game's called Lost Planet. It too is on the Xbox Marketplace, but I wouldn't be surprised if they remove this one as well because it's not as popular as other 360 games. And what's it called? On to the DLC part. You gotta think too, like, how old the 360 is for like the add-ons, the DLCs, and stuff like that. But you gotta ask yourself too, are you actually gonna use it? Because there's a lot of like cosmetic, multiplayer skin DLCs that you can't actually, you can still buy, but you can't actually use because the multiplayer support for those games is no longer there. So you gotta think about that too. Like there's some Battlefield games I think on Game Pass that are 360 era, and you can't play them because nobody's playing it, and I don't think EA supports them despite them being on Game Pass. So like Battlefield 1943 and stuff like that. And I think even the Bad Company multiplayer doesn't work anymore. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what's it called? I think Microsoft did it so that people, well, you gotta think too, like they gotta make their money back from Game Pass as well. So you can't ignore the corporate side of Microsoft because Game Pass impacts sales. So if games are added to Game Pass, then there's not gonna be as many people buying games just instead of memberships and stuff like that. And what's it called? Some of the 360 games have some of the worst controls I've ever seen in games, but we wouldn't have good controls today if it wasn't for that trial and error stuff. Like this game, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, but with the D-pad, and I'm like, that's pretty awkward. And the bumpers make you turn instantly left, instantly right. And I'm just like, do you really? I don't know what the developer was thinking when they made this game. This game is made by Capcom, but there's other games that are kind of clunky. One of the worst 360 games I have ever played, despite it being popular, is going to be Perfect Dark Zero. 90% or more of the achievements, I'm going to say, were Xbox Live oriented, and the campaign was a buggy mess. Like, you remember that 360 game I was talking about earlier where they shot me through a wall despite there being no windows? In that game, cover basically doesn't exist on some levels, and the AI is extremely overpowered even on easy, and it just doesn't make sense. It's very clunky. Whereas the first Perfect Dark that was made for the Nintendo 64, I think, that one actually, the controls were way better and it was a way better functioning game. Whereas Perfect Dark Zero, I think, was made as a push for the 360's Xbox Live. So it's one of the worst 360 games I've ever played, despite it being like hyped. But the hype behind that game was it was a 360 launch title, so you have to remember that too. And in the later 360 years, such as Halo Reach, Battlefield 3, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2, games start becoming more stabilized and less clunky, and you can see some of the resemblance carrying over into the Xbox One. But also, I think that Microsoft wants people to play more modernized games. So if you eliminate the 360 from the competition between the One games and the Series X and Series S games, people are more inclined to buy it instead of retro games. But you got to ask yourself, this is like, is it ethical, since they keep constantly promote the idea of backwards compatibility? So if they remove 360 games, it kind of defeats that idea. Now, they did say that even though they remove games from the marketplace, that they're still playable if you have the CD. But me and you both know that CDs wear and tear. Like, I have a broken CD right now in my game CD bag, and it won't work, and the Series X buzzes when it plays. So I'm like, I gotta trash this. But you might not be able to find it on the marketplace and stuff like that. And we all know GameStop is the last place you want to buy a game because the things are shredded and they most likely are not going to work. So that's my take on retro games. As you know, I'm born in 97, so the 360 to me is kind of like how the millennials see the 90s in a way. But that's all I have to say about 360 retro games and Microsoft's idea of getting rid of the 360, not all 360, but some 360 games off the marketplace. Thank you for watching.